If you have used any social media apps in the past months, you've definitely noticed that there's a lot of political presence on there. And voting for people who are going to be in powerful positions is an important task which we as American citizens are highly encouraged to do. And according to an article published by Clement on February 26, 2020 on Statista.com, people worldwide spend about 2 hours and 24 minutes on social media per day. And in checking similar studies on this, I found that the average American spends about that same time on social media. So there's a good amount of time during the day where we can be influenced by political things on social media platforms. This can be a good thing because it is always important to make sure you are informed about both sides of the issues of the current day. But what can be concerning is how certain platforms control what people do and say on their platform. And it's got me thinking about what kind of role does big tech play in this? Do these social media platforms conduct themselves with integrity, or are they just taking the role as a oppressor actually? So I decided to do some research on this, and I'm experiencing this because I've witnessed the power big tech has while I'm on these social media apps. And I've found that social media platforms are becoming too powerful and oppressive and must be limited in their power to ensure better integrity. So I'll talk about a couple of different problems, such as fact checking and censoring users, and then I'll give some possible solutions to these problems. So I first want to talk about how fact checking has an influence on social media. So according to aboutpedia.org, fact checking is defined as, quote, a modern identifiable category of journalism, and its goal is to provide accurate, unbiased analysis of statements made in public in order to correct public misinterpretations and increase knowledge of important issues, unquote. This is an important feature of social media because we want to know if politicians or other powerful figures are speaking the truth or trying to manipulate people with lies. This issue is that the fact checkers are making speculations on unknown information as false when it is really unproven. Such examples of these are like origins of the coronavirus and the effectiveness of hydroxychloroquine. Hotly debated things like these should be open for interpretation. Instead, fact checkers have flocked to any post on social media where people are questioning what they're really being told about these things. And on top of this, accounts will often get blocked by these social media platforms because of speaking their opinion. The solution to this is to just let people say what they want, and for social media companies to stop silencing people whose viewpoints they disagree with. And if someone is met with this kind of malice for simply stating their opinion, then this is a threat to our freedom of speech as a whole. So social media CEOs such as Mark Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey should not have control over our freedom of speech. And I reiterate, stating an opinion should not be an infringement that someone's account should be blocked over. So next I want to talk about how social media platforms are one-sided on who they censor and block. So in a 2020 article published by Vogels, Perrin, and Anderson on pewresearch.org, their survey shows that, quote, Republicans are far more likely than Democrats to say major tech companies favor the views of liberals over conservatives, unquote. These surveys also highlighted that roughly 3/4 of U.S. adults say that it's very or somewhat likely that social media sites intentionally censor political viewpoints that they find objectionable. Just 25% of these people believe this is not likely the case, unquote. Out of those adults, quote, 90% of Republicans or Republican-leaning U.S. adults say it's at least somewhat likely that social media sites censor political viewpoints they find objectionable, unquote. On the other hand, only 59% of Democrat or Democrat-leaning adults believe this. But these are not just baseless claims. According to an article published by Adriana Cohen on October 25th, 2020 on foxnews.com, quote, the ever-growing list of those censors include the President of the United States, his White House press secretary, and the New York Post, whose account was locked for posting a credible story about Joe Biden and his son during an election, unquote. These major instances and countless other minor instances are very concerning. And in the age of political divide, more and more people have viewpoints that only favor one political party. That makes me question why social media platforms censor these people. Could it be that they want to prevent misinformation, or are they truly silencing those they disagree with? Unfortunately, it looks like it is the latter. What should be done about this? What should be done is that these social media platforms need to stop censoring and locking people out of their accounts just because they disagree with what they are saying. And they're giving people who are simply stating their opinion, or even people who are publishing credible information, the same treatment as those who are intentionally inciting violence and terrorism. And at this point, we must either fight back against these big tech companies, or we must find an alternative social media platform that values the freedom of speech. These companies' oppression has not gone without some pushback, however. According to an article published by James Clayton on October 27, 2020 on BBC.com, quote, such examples were repeatedly given during a congressional hearing in July, where the bosses of Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon were cross-examined. Quote, I'm just going to cut to the chase, said Republican Congressman Jim Jordan. Quote, big tech is out to get conservatives. This was something that CEOs denied. Unquote. All of this I am talking to you about could be viewed as an us versus them mentality, but demanding that social media companies treat everybody fairly should be a bipartisan issue. When these social media companies have such control over what is said on their platform, then it can have an effect on how people are influenced politically. So overall, social media companies are abusing their power, and it is a big concern. Their dishonest and dangerous behavior playing a big role in how people are influenced and how elections turn out. And to counteract this, we must speak out against this blatant censorship of people whom these social media platforms disagree with. We should let everybody be able to speak their opinion, whether we agree with it or not. We must hold these social media companies to a better standard and not let them get away with this. And overall, I hope you now see how big of a role social media companies play, and I also hope that your eyes have been opened to the suppression of free speech by these companies.